This is Jay Martin.
All right, what's up? Here we are. I'm with Ross McElroy, the president and CEO of Fission Uranium Corp. Ross, it's really good to see you, and thanks so much for making the time to come on the show today.
Great to be here with you today, Jay. Thank you.
So I got to ask, we're seeing all sorts of potential massive trigger points in the uranium and nuclear space. And I got to tell you, as a conference promoter, the uranium crowd is so loyal, good market, bad market. If I have uranium content on the stage, I can pack the room because it always seems, Ross, like that uranium bull market is just around the corner, just teasing us, right? And right now we've got so many geopolitical factors contributing to potential flashpoints, like more so than ever. I want to know what you're paying attention to right now. Like what's catching your eye? What's getting your attention?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. There's so many points right now that are working in the favor of the nuclear sector. It's hard to focus on a few of them, but I'll tell you what, I think probably the biggest story is one that we saw most recently. I think it was August 24th, so about a week or so ago, with the Japanese government basically backing nuclear as a key part of their strategy going forward. And what that includes is Japan obviously was the factor that put us into the big doldrums more than a decade ago after the Fukushima event. And people were always waiting. Well, when is Japan coming back? When are they coming back? Well, now you can see that there's a strategic strategy to go forward that Japan does want to get back, and almost it seems to near the same levels that they were at pre-Fukushima. So they have seven reactors currently operating now, or 10 reactors operating now. There's 7, I think, that they're gearing to be restarted in 2023. But I think even more importantly is the long-term story. Japan is supporting development of next generation reactors into their fold. So they've recognized obviously that nuclear is a key part of their clean green energy solution, and it's just, I think we're starting to see Japan come back to be a major player on the world stage, and that has had instant ramifications. I think we've seen the price of the commodity move up in the last 10 days, from where it was prior to their announcement of 48 and change, to now, close to $53 a pound on the spot. So it's just, that to me was a major story, and that should not be lost on anybody that's following the nuclear sector. But really, it's not even the only story. I think we saw recently with the South Korea with the new government in place now. So again, they're becoming pro-nuclear again. They've stepped back from the nuclear energy sector several years ago, but now there's an obvious strategy again to make South Korea ramp up on its nuclear energy. And I think that their goal is to probably produce about a third of their power again by nuclear. So that's a great sentiment as well. What else have we seen? Recently in the EU, now it's being recognized as a clean green investment opportunity from 2023 onwards. That's a major shift. So you're seeing it globally across the many countries, and I just think that there's so many good stories out there in the nuclear sector, and I think we've got the wind in our in our sails right now.
Yeah, that EU news is really breakthrough. It opens up the floodgates to so much capital. Finally, uranium or nuclear being recognized as the only zero emission baseload power source the world has, and it's been like put in the doghouse for the last 15 years. So there's a lot of pent up demand, literally pent up energy. Now, I know you're off to the World Nuclear Association conference in London in a few weeks. This, for anybody who doesn't know, is the flagship event within the nuclear industry. I got to assume, Ross, this year is going to be more interesting than any previous year. And I maybe would speculate that there's probably, or what do you think? You tell me, do you expect any Russian participation this year from the Russians, the Uzbeks, the Kazakhs to be present?
Well, that'll be an interesting thing. Certainly the Kazakhs will. They're such an important, dominant player, and and they still, with Kazatomprom, they're still, one of the key, probably if not the number one or number two uranium, company in the world right now. I think they'll certainly have a presence. It'll be interesting to see if the Russia have any contingency there or not. But I'll tell you, I'm really looking forward to the WNA conference this year. I think the optimism in the air is so much stronger than we've seen. I've been attending this conference for the last probably 15 years or so, and I really am getting a sense that this will probably be the most optimistic of all. So I think we always say that we're in the early innings of a long bull market in uranium, and I think we are, and I think the WNA conference will hopefully reflect that as well. But what's key there is we're always going to get some great data points on, the health of the sector, where things are at. You'll get a better sense of what the future projections on demand will be, and they touch on supplies as well. So I think it's just a great opportunity for all the the players involved in in the sector to get together. There's great networking, but I think the air of optimism is probably as good as we've seen.
No doubt. Yeah, I want to hear about it after the fact. I want to pivot to fission because this is the first time we've had you on the show. I want to get the breakdown. I mean, the world's now shifted from understanding that nuclear could be a good energy source to believing it's a mandatory one in order to accomplish our climate goals, et cetera. Simultaneously, there's more geopolitical tensions than ever before. And so location of supply is hyper critical, and you're in a great jurisdiction. So give us first of all, Ross, like the high level overview of Fission Uranium. What are you guys up to?
Sure. Well, let's start off with what you just mentioned on the location. I do think that North American supplies are going to continue to garner the headlines. They're probably the most important sources going forward. The Athabasca Basin in northern Saskatchewan and Canada, central Canada, it's long been recognized as probably the premier uranium district in the world, certainly with respect to large and high grade deposits. So that's what makes it unique amongst other areas where deposits in any other part of the world. Is that the grade of the Athabasca deposits are just so many orders of magnitude higher than elsewhere. Plus, you're in a safe geopolitical environment, low government risk, low country risk. So if the economics warrant development, you're also in an area that, on the regulatory front, will allow you to develop projects. So you've got all your major aspects ticked, and this is really where we fall in. So our PLS project is located in the Athabasca Basin. We're actually in the southwest side of the basin. We made our discovery, I guess, 10 years ago now. So in the fall of 2012, we made a discovery hole, and it's just outside of the Athabasca Basin proper. So we're actually in better rocks as far as, I guess, more confidence. We don't have an overlying sandstone. We're in hard, competent basement rock that does surround and underlay the Athabasca Basin. So it's a key part of any deposit associated with the Athabasca. But in our case, that basement rock actually comes right up the surface because we don't have the sandstone on top. And so the PLS RRR deposit is sitting right near surface. We're 50 meters below. So we have all the hallmarks of an Athabasca, a premier Athabasca deposit being large, it's high grade, it's near surface, which is pretty unique, and it's entirely hosted in basement competent rock. So it's, this is really I think it makes it one of the premier deposits in the district, and it's one that we continue to advance, and we think will ultimately be a production story during the cycle of the uranium boom.
Okay, I want to pull on that thread. What can you share at this point, Ross, about the production timeline? Or I know your proximity to neighbors like NextGen is significant. So
Yeah.
what's on the table there? Talking about the game plan a little bit.
Well, okay, so we're in the feasibility study right now. In fact, we're well into it. We're in probably the last quarter of the work to be done in the feasibility study. We expect to have it completed by the end of this calendar year. So, feasibility is your last major economic hurdle that is required in order to make an economic decision. And then, of course, there's all the permitting and social agreements with local Indigenous partners in the area as well. So we're moving along quite well. As I said, feasibility we expect to be done 2022. Just looking forward at the timelines on the regulatory front. By the time we have approvals in all areas, it'll probably be early to mid 2026. We'll be able to begin development of the project there towards production, which means 2.5 to 3 years after the start of development, we could be a producing asset. So I think our timelines are about 2029 to be a producing asset on the RRR. So it's basically making sure that we meet all the steps from where we're at right now in order to get us to that stage. But I think those are realistic timelines. And you're right, we're sitting right beside NextGen, which is also a tier 1 deposit in the area. They're continue to advance it. They're looking to me, in my opinion, that will be an absolute premier development story, production story. One of the largest. We're located about 3 kilometers away, and in fact, there's a lot of similarities between the RRR and the Arrow deposits. Are in the same basement rock. They're on the same trend. It's the same fault zone essentially that's hosting the deposit. So there's a lot of, I think, a lot of similarities in just proximity, or 2 major projects in the Athabasca. I think that spells. It's pretty obvious to me that the southwest side of the basin will be, a dominant part of the upcoming mining districts in the Athabasca Basin.
Interesting. Now you mentioned, so moving towards completion of the feasibility by Q4, then we got to go through some permitting. You mentioned social agreements, right? And hypercritical. I know a lot of Canadian investors know that's one of the biggest barriers for development companies. And you've been at work there, I believe, is it the Buffalo River Dene Nation? This is who you formed a strategic communication agreement with?
Yeah, that's the most recent agreement. There's several Indigenous groups that we need to work closely with. We already have with the BRDN, the Buffalo River Dene Nation agreement that we signed back in July. That's our 3rd such agreement already in place now. So we started off about a year and a half ago with the CRDN, Clearwater River Dene Nation. And earlier this summer, we also signed an agreement with the YNLR, the FNNE Land Resource Group, so a Métis focused Indigenous group. So we've got 3 agreements in place. I think we're probably hoping to, we probably would have, I would guess, 2 such agreements yet to be completed, and we're working towards getting them done. So if things work out, and we should be able to have another 1 or 2 agreements later this calendar year. Now, these are important agreements because what they do is they start building the framework for a working relationship with the key Indigenous groups in the area. It's basically advanced communications. They know what we're doing. They're actually involved on, looking at the environmental data and working with us to make sure that the project is being developed in a manner that is respectful of the area, the environment. It's beneficial to the people that live there. There's employment and service opportunities that spin out of these things. So I think what's great about the province in general is that it has a good track record of Indigenous groups working with industry, and we're no exception to that. I think we've got strong relationships with the local groups that are supportive, and we're going through the process to formalize these.
I love that. Now, I like the timeline at a super high level. We're looking towards development in 2026, putting us on path for production in 2029. What about near-term catalyst, Ross? If you're talking to a prospective shareholder right now who's like, okay, what about near-term news flow? What can I expect to come out of Fission? I mean, every retail investor wants to know, this all sounds good, but what's going to make the share price go up? So what can we expect in terms of near-term catalysts and work?
Well, it's not only progress at the project level. I mean, those, I think we're hitting all those, and we'll continue to, make news announcements as we go forward. So I would look towards, news on our feasibility study numbers towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we may be able to, if we can, get further agreements in place with our local Indigenous partners in the area. That's certainly newsworthy. And I think the overall story, the macro story, it should catch everybody's attention. So I think, as the price of the commodity moves forward, we see a strengthening across the board. The price of uranium continues to move upwards. Demand is there. A recognition that the Athabasca is a key part of the story going forward, and that Fission's PLS project is right in the top of that mix of projects that will be going forward. So I think there should be pretty continuous news flow, good stories, both macro and at the project level as we continue along our path towards production.
And I know people are talking about M&A in the sector, and there's been a little bit recently. I mean, and I gotta wonder, how beneficial is it having somebody like NextGen 3 kilometers away blazing the trail, right? It can create some catalyst for you in the future. Do you expect some consolidation in the space as the industry heats up a little bit?
Yeah, I expect that it will. I think you're right. We've started to see a little bit of that already recently with the UEC acquisition of UEX. I think is an important new M&A activity that's happened. We'll see. There's not an awful lot of development stories like ours. If you look at the list of players, you've got Cameco as a major mining company. Development stories. There's Denison. There's NextGen. There's Fission. There's a few other advanced project stories. IsoEnergy comes to mind. Yeah. But that's a pretty short list, and there is. I think there's an absolute need for some consolidation in the area, and I think we've started to see that. How that unfolds, I guess we'll wait and see. But obviously a good, positive, sentiment in the nuclear sector is key to that. Recognition that the Athabasca projects are all tier one. The ones that I've just mentioned, those are all tier one projects. You're looking in a tier one jurisdiction. I think that there's probably more M&A activity to be had out there. It's just a natural evolution of great projects in a great area.
I agree. Yeah, and I'm on the same page. I'm anticipating a bit more action in the next 6-12 months. Look, Ross, it's been great having you on the show. Thanks so much for coming on. I would love to bring you back on towards the end of the year when we're completing the feasibility study, get the update, and hear from you again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll look forward to that. I think that maybe the next time we talk, we'll be able to share a little bit more on the feasibility study. If it's towards the end of the year, as I said, we're expecting to have our feasibility study done. So some great stories coming out of the company, great stories coming out of the sector. So yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk today.
All right, thank you for watching this interview. Now, 3 things before I let you go. Number 1, I publish a weekly newsletter and I love writing it. I share my biggest takeaways and action items from the conversations that I have on this channel. In addition, my thoughts on current events, economic events, political events, and you can subscribe for free. Just hit the pinned comment right beneath this video, or just go to jmartin.club and you can subscribe on the website. I'd love to have you join the team. Number 2, ad revenue from this channel is donated to an organization that is super close to my heart called Zero Ceiling. Now, Zero Ceiling's mission is to end youth homelessness, and the way they do this is by giving at-risk urban youth the opportunity to relocate to beautiful wilderness areas and then provide them with supportive housing, career training, and just generally positive influences on their life. I love what they do. Check them out if you're interested. And number 3, if you prefer to listen to my content as opposed to watch it, you can find me wherever you listen to your podcasts. Just search for The Jay Martin Show. All right, thanks again.